Hi, everybody. My name is Eller Mallchok. I'm the managing director here at Jumpstart Foundry. You've probably seen a number of emails come from me over the last couple of days, weeks. We're really excited to have our 2021 application open. So we're seeing a ton of great applicants come through, but just like any application process, there are bound to be tons of questions. And so we host a number of these Q&A webinars, as well as an upcoming founder perspective webinar for any potential applicants that want to get an idea of what it's like to go through the Jumpstart Foundry application process, to know what it's like to work with us as a portfolio company. Tons of questions about our terms of investment, since they are standard, which is somewhat unique to Jumpstart Foundry, but that is what we are going to cover all on this webinar. Kind of first up, kicked out of that, sorry. The first thing I want to cover, though, hold on, is, I'm starting, here we go. First thing I want to cover, though, is important dates that we have here kind of over the next couple of months. So applications are live and open. I get a lot of questions from people saying, okay, once I start my application, do I have to finish it in one sitting? Absolutely not. We've actually designed it so that applications can be started. You can put placeholder text into a lot of the fields and advance forward to see all of the fields that you do have to submit, so that you can come back to it, update it as things might change over the next couple of weeks. But really what you need to ensure that you do is submit your final application by March 31st at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. So you have till the very last minute of March 31st to do that. Again, you can come back and update, edit all up until that date, but after that date, whatever data and information you have in your application is what we will take to review your company. Just something I recommend to everyone that has started an application, because just like a lot of other frustrating online portals like this, there is the risk of you getting to the very last page, internet craps out, and you've lost all the data that you've input. So I highly recommend entering some of this information into a Word doc or somewhere that you can quickly recover it should you need to insert all the data again. It's just a best practice. I encourage you to do that. The next question I always get is, how long is it going to take for us to review applications? When would you likely hear from us? We pretty much take the month of April to review deals. So we will kind of between the 1st and 30th, the internal Jumpstart Foundry team is going to be looking at all of the applicants. We're going to be asking a number of applicants to advance into kind of a round 2 with us, in which they will receive an invitation to complete a virtual interview. That usually comes around mid-April. So if you don't see that mid-April, we will kind of notify people whether or not they have advanced or have not advanced into round 2. So you'll hear maybe something by mid-April. If you do move forward and kind of advance to that round 2, you can expect for us to be making offers kind of the week of May 3rd. So anytime between May 3rd and May 7th. The reason we give it a whole week is that we typically will make kind of our first round of offers. There may be 1 or 2 companies that got through this whole process and maybe something just didn't work and they're not able to accept our investment offer. And so we do try to leave a couple of days if we need to make a few additional offers there. So it's kind of a week-long process from May 3rd to May 7th. A lot of questions are on our standard terms. So I want to cover what I mean and kind of what are the core functions of our standard terms that I get a lot of emails about from founders. So first and foremost, we use a standard safe note. It is a standard document used by every single one of our portfolio companies. Most of you all, I believe, know what safe notes are. It's a simple agreement for future equity. A much easier document to track and complete than, say, a convertible note. the other question I get a lot from founders is, well, I already have an open safe or an open convertible note. Can Jumpstart just invest on that? Unfortunately, no, we have to, because of the scale and volume of companies we're investing in, I can't be investing in a bunch of different notes. They all have to be standardized across the board. But we have invested in companies that have open notes or open safes when we are investing. So that is just something that ends up, you as the founder have to talk to your other existing investors about. Is we have this opportunity with Jumpstart Foundry. They have standard terms. It's almost like joining a program. And so it would just be a note outside of whatever maybe open round you currently have. But we have definitely done that. Just something to be aware of. I get questions about the 2 or 4 million valuation caps that we put on both of them. Again, standard terms, standard documents, but we have kind of 2 tiers of that document. There's a 2 million post money safe or a 4 million post money safe. We believe that in the pre-seed stages, so the early stages of companies, a lot of times the outcome is quite binary, in that the outcome is either the whole team and all of your early investors are wildly successful and you are raising money or getting acquired at a much, much, much higher valuation than either a 2 or a 4. That is the goal. Or, at this point, we're so early, the other outcome is that everything fails. We hate seeing that outcome, and we're going to work with you all to hopefully never see that outcome. But it is true. And it's something that we've observed, again, working with a lot of early stage companies, is that there can be a lot of time wasted negotiating between a 2 and a 2.5 and a 3 or a 4.5. And when really, you're negotiating something where the outcomes are going to be quite binary. As you start to raise more money, though, those numbers become much more important. The valuations, as you increase value, become much more important because it's much more influential on the founders' equity and an investor's equity stake in the businesses. But at this early stage, we really try to base these valuations on a relative value of the company at the time. And so when we're dictating between whether a company gets a 2 or a 4, it really is based on current revenue and traction. Are you all showing, some current revenue and current traction so far? It is not dictated based on previous rounds of capital. So maybe I get a lot of emails, well, I have an open note with a 5 million valuation cap, or I've already closed some capital from friends and family on a 4.5. Is there any way you can increase? Unfortunately, no. We've either missed the boat, if you will, in terms of, you might be too far along for Jumpstart Foundry to be an appropriate investor. Or maybe you can talk to those existing investors and say, hey, listen, this is a really strategic opportunity for us. Maybe we can offer Jumpstart Foundry somewhat of a premium because they have these standard terms. It's just something that you always have to talk to your team and your existing investors about, and kind of go into our application process with full knowledge and awareness of. The third thing about our terms is that we have a $50K refinery fee that grants lifetime access to exclusive programming and classes and community, and access to kind of a community of fellow entrepreneurs. And so you can, again, that is a strategic thing that we've built in so that you all founders can access those resources no matter how long it takes you to grow and build value as a team. That is a big difference between us and maybe a more traditional accelerator program, where it would be, only 2-3 months of working with them, and then you kind of get pushed out of the nest. Whereas with Jumpstart, it is a one-time fee that allows us to keep the lights on and employ people to really build resources and deliver you all value throughout the life of your company. I always like to say that Jumpstart really is supportive through a lot of those milestone moments. So think early stages where you're really forming things, getting the team all on the same page, solidifying the market, go-to-market strategy. And then you guys are going to be working, and you don't need us on your back or on your board, kind of in the business of the everyday. Instead, you might need a strategic investor when you are rearranging the executive team, when you are raising that next round of capital, when you are executing a major deal with a potential customer or client. Those are the moments when we can be most strategic and most helpful, kind of helping you all navigate through that as a trusted partner that is on the cap table with you. And then the next question I get, and again, I'm sure I'm going to be answering a lot of these questions here in the chat and comments. So again, if you have questions, add them to that chat feature. I'll be going through those here in a minute. But I like to hit on just this statement of like, how can you really best position your company for success and really showcase to me and to the Jumpstart Foundry team that your company is very well positioned to not fail. So I always like to show this, the number one reason, startup companies fail. And this is from CB Insights, kind of the top 20 reasons startups fail. And really, I like to focus here on the first 3, particularly at this stage that we're investing. Number 1 is there is no market need. That is crazy. So I love you guys, and you guys are all making and building amazing, innovative, technologies and products and services. But if you can't tell me or can't convey to me in the application that there is a real market need, then that's a red flag. So make sure in your application that you understand what your market opportunity is, what the pain point is, and how your solution is directly meeting that need, and how you're actually going to sell to those customers. So that's the number 1 reason startups fail. And it's the number 1 thing I look for in applications is your ability to very clearly define that market need and how you are solving it. Number 2 is running out of money. That's crazy. It's wild, but it is true. And as early stage founders, you all know how much, and I apologize for my language, but how much of a bitch it is to raise money, and particularly how much of a bitch it is to raise early stage money. I'm sure as founders, and I see this all the time, there's so much Series A capital out there. There's so much. But they all want to see $1 million run rate. They want to see traction. They want to see customers. And it's really hard to show that revenue, that traction, particularly as a healthcare startup in the early days. It takes a long, long time to close customers in the healthcare industry. And so this is a big kind of looming fear for a lot of early stage companies. So what I look for here is actually your ability to control burn. So I always look at, oh my goodness, is this company, is their burn rate just out of control? Because to me, that's going to say, okay, well, how far is our investment really going to go? And 150, ultimately kind of 100,000 in your pocket, but 50K in services with Jumpstart, you can do a lot with that, but you can't last forever on that. And so I need to be able to see that you all as founders and as teams have really designed a great way to handle your burn. So that is either through knowing exactly where you're going to spend the money, how much money it's going to take for you to hit a milestone moment kind of in the next kind of 12 to 18 months. So again, focus on how you're going to conserve capital and reach those milestones without running out of money. And then the last one, the third reason is that it's not the right team. So I want to know, you all as founders are one of the most important parts of this whole stage. I want to make sure I'm investing in the right team. Why are you and your team members uniquely qualified to meet this market need and develop the solutions that you are building? I love to see technical founders on the team. So what I mean by that is someone on the team that is actually building the product. I think that is incredibly important. Someone that, on nights and weekends or 2, 3 in the morning can fix a problem with your product or with your technology without charging you up the wall for it is really important. So I love seeing technical co-founders. I love seeing people that have experience in the industry that they're selling into or some specific insight into that market. So being able to communicate that why you and your team are top notch for the market that you're serving. So let's see. With that, I wanted to just stop talking and let you guys ask questions. I wanted to highlight again these important dates: March 31st at midnight, April 30th, we'll be reviewing applications, and then hopefully offers by May 3rd. So with that, I will stop my share and I'm going to go focus back on our chats. And I will go through some of the questions that came through. Okay, so first question, and it's a great question. So when is the 50K fee payable, and can it be taken from the initial tranche of funding? It actually is always taken from that initial tranche of funding. So that we don't want it to be a burden on you all. So it comes kind of out of our investment and pays the refinery, which is managed by Jumpstart Health Investors, which is a one-time fee, and you will have access to the refinery, its resources, and all of Jumpstart Foundry's connections for the life of your company. So it's paid at the time of funding. Great question. Let's see. On your website, mention 150,000 safe, but did not note that on your previous slide. Is it no longer that? So sorry, I should have written that. It is the $150,000 safe. So good catch there. It is still $150,000. And it is always $150,000. Let's see. The 50 comes out of the 150. The founders are just down to 100. Yes, it is 100,000 into your pocket, but it is $150,000 value to your company, and on the term sheet. So very, very clear distinguishing factor there. Question from, let's see, Dietech Diabetes. What are some specific examples of tangible help that the 50K collateral and services provide? Can it be in the form of legal counsel, office rent, marketing help? So it does not come in the form of necessarily formal legal counsel or office rent. Think of it much more of like a fellowship program, like a lifetime fellowship program. So we are going to connect you with experts that can help mentor you on some of those key things, whether it be legal or team dynamics or personal kind of leadership growth, selling into health systems, payers, employers, or marketing expertise. But we don't provide that outright. It's more so, again, think of it like a fellowship program and an exclusive programming for you all to kind of hit the ground running as founders. Does Jumpstart Foundry have connections to hospitals and healthcare institutions to introduce portfolio companies? Yes, that is a huge value that we bring to our portfolio companies. However, I always like to say, just once we invest doesn't mean that all of a sudden you get immediate access to our full network. I think that's really important for founders to understand. And I actually think it's something that everyone understands deeply, and that we've spent years cultivating and growing this network of strategics within health systems or payers or healthcare institutions. But it's the value of that network diminishes if we immediately open it up to everyone all at one time. And so what we do is we work with our founders to make sure they are 110% ready for those introductions, so that when you are given a warm introduction to a health system, that conversation is going to go so well that they're going to want to partner with you. I've seen so many founders, and we've made the mistake ourselves of, sending founders in when they're not quite ready. and it's a bridge burnt, and it's very hard to go back to that same customer or potential customer when you've already kind of had that first impression somewhat tarnished. So we are very, very strategic with how we introduce and kind of tee up some of our portfolio companies to these strategic partners that we do have. Um, do you show any preference to startups located in Nashville or in Tennessee? Absolutely not. Obviously, we're based in Nashville, Tennessee, and we love Nashville, and it's a fantastic community and ecosystem for healthcare companies. But we believe that great healthcare companies are being developed all across the country, and particularly between the coasts. So we do not require companies to be located in Nashville or in Tennessee. We don't give preference to those companies. So if you're located somewhere else in the country, that is fantastic. Love to know where you're coming from and why you are there. Especially if the reason is, well, it's super cheap to live here and run a business. That's a good enough answer for me. Especially, I think we've all seen through COVID that we can do a lot of great work virtually. So no preference for where you are located. The only preference I do have is that you do have to be located in the United States, headquartered here. We're not currently investing internationally. So that's the only requirement. Okay, great question from Philip here. Is the program in person, online, or distant learning? It is a mix of online. Honestly, it's a mix of all of those. So online and in person. A lot of our a lot of our programming is going to be delivered virtually. That is something that we worked on throughout 2020 and have kind of really bought into and recognized the value of, since we are investing in companies all across the country. I don't necessarily need you spending money on plane tickets to Nashville all the time. And so it's mostly delivered virtually. However, there is that benefit of meeting fellow founders and other cohort members in person. So we will host, when it is safe again to do so, some founder experiences that will happen in Nashville. That said, as things start opening up again and we are traveling around the country, we will host events across the country in various cities. So it's a mix, but mostly online, really to accommodate the founders' busy schedule. Patricia with a great question. Will you look at and fund programs, products, and services in the behavioral health arena that help healthcare providers, frontline docs, nurses with burnout? Absolutely. So good question here, and specifically on behavioral health and physician burnout. That's a great focus, and actually one that I'm personally interested in. And after a year like 2020, there is going to be massive amounts of physician and nurse burnout. And how is the industry going to respond to that? I'm very interested in that topic and theme. To elaborate on that a little bit more, other topics and themes that we are interested in, Jumpstart approaches kind of our investment thesis very broadly. So we're looking at healthcare, and wellness. I like to separate health and healthcare because I see healthcare really as kind of a more traditional providing services in a traditional healthcare setting, where health is really, I think, health and wellness is really individuals, patients taking their own health and well-being into their own hands. We're seeing a lot of trends in that, whether that be through, pharmacy, retail, employers, direct to consumer products and models as well. We will look at all of that. Really, the only area that we kind of in health and healthcare that we do not invest is deep biotech or pharmaceuticals. We have and do invest in digital therapeutics and some medical devices, but if it is a device that requires some sort of FDA approval, it is typically kind of a low threshold, so 510K process or something similar. So no new drugs, no implantables or anything like that.
Can I ask a question or we have to
Sure.
type?
Sure, you can go
Uh,
ahead.
yes, so we are digital health in oncology space, and that is a space usually not many investors are investing. So I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, how about your thoughts in
I
oncology?
I would love to know your product more. And so send an email, start an application, certainly. Um, because I would love to know more about kind of the digital therapeutic in oncology. We had a very successful exit from a previous fund, or 20 from a 2016 fund specifically, that was a digital therapeutic to treat amblyopia, which is lazy eye. And so that was a fantastic investment for us, but really a brand new, unique treatment. And so oncology is very complex and there's a lot going on. So encourage you to apply for sure.
Can we get a website link?
Yep.
We apply
So
or your
Michael,
email address?
yeah, absolutely. So Michael, can you share in the chat Jumpstart Foundry's website, and maybe the apply page? That'd be fantastic. Um, all right. Thank you, Lily.
Thank you.
Um, Another question, does Jumpstart invest in direct to consumer solutions? So Philip, yes, to kind of what I was talking about previously, we do. Has to be health or wellness related. So some examples of some health and wellness products, kind of direct to consumer products that we've invested in the past. We have a probiotic company that we invested in a few years ago, selling through Whole Foods and Target now. We invested in a company called Recoup Fitness, gosh, 2016, 2017. It's a cold massage roller. They also have now a heated sleeve. So, thinking about any kind of direct to consumer health and wellness product, we are interested in reviewing that. The key with direct to consumer products, so for any D2C companies or founders on the line, the key there is really knowing what I like to call just the math problem behind direct to consumer. Most D2C, investors at the Series C or Series A stage, um, they are going to be looking for quote unquote that like a really strong math problem. So what are your numbers for, producing and manufacturing whatever it is you might be selling? What's the CAC? How low can you get that CAC? And what's the price of what you're selling? Like it's all a big math problem, whereas less so with B2B companies. But we do absolutely look at direct to consumer. And the next question is, do you take pre-revenue startups? We do. We do look at a lot of companies again at this stage. Our pre-revenue, it is always helpful if you have some amount of revenue. It's helpful, but it's not required by any means. If you don't have revenue, so the second I see, okay, they don't have revenue, but how much work have they done validating their customer and user market? So making sure that you have made at least some progress and that it's not just an idea on a napkin. You have to have it off the napkin, and you have to have a little bit of progress having built the solution and having users or the market testing it. So that's important. And then next question here, we got someone that joined late. So catch from your slide on safe terms cap. I'll just reiterate for anyone that may have joined late, we do have valuation caps on our standard safe notes. It's either a 2 million or a 4 million. We base whether we make an offer at the 2 million or 4 million really off of shown revenue or traction. It is not based off of previous rounds raised. So for example, I always get the question, I don't have any revenue, but I've raised money from maybe friends and family or others, another angel or something like that, at a slightly higher valuation. Can we make any changes? Unfortunately, no. But that's not to say we've had plenty of companies that have done that. And what we do is we end up talking to those friends and families or other angel investors to say, here's how Jumpstart is different. And here's how, why we have standard terms. And here's how we can be really strategic for the company moving forward. So we do have to use our standard terms. And again, it's based on revenue and traction shown. Cool. Any other questions coming in directly? Let's see. I don't see any other questions coming in. Let me see if I have some. I have some questions that I'll just cover up, and literally maybe we can cap this at 1:35 and let everyone on the call get back to your very busy schedules, which I know you have. So the last question that I get a lot that I want to talk about is I get questions about the application and specifically the questions that we ask around pilots. And we ask for a lot of pilot details and have you conducted pilots? So for that question, I want you all to think about, again, that first number one reason startups fail is market need. If you have done pilots or are currently conducting pilots, any details that you can give that help showcase your understanding of your customers' pain points and how you are shaping or building the product to meet those customers' pain points. That's what I want to see in those pilot details. I don't need to know like all the specific terms of the pilot. It's helpful to know that, but it's more so demonstrating your ability to one, collect customer and market feedback, and how do you integrate that into different product iterations. And so an awareness of that, a clear, an ability to clearly convey that in the application is really important. And that's really what I want to get out of that pilot question. Okay. Oh, someone raised. Okay, awesome. I have not had a raised hand in a webinar before, so I'm really glad to have that. So JC, you're welcome to come off mute and ask a question if you want to.
Hey, thanks, Eller. Sorry, my camera is usually pretty good, but Zoom is rejecting it at the moment.
No worries. I loved that you were able to raise your hand. This is my first raised hand in a webinar.
Yeah, I've gotten pretty good at Zoom over the last 12 months.
Love it.
So I was trying to write it up in the chat, but it was maybe a little particular to me, so I wasn't sure how to make it brief. I'll try though. So my company Diatech we're targeting a 1.2 million seed round. And our product is a deep tech transfer for companies that make insulin pumps. So what we want to do is we want to license an algorithm we build so that they can deploy it and that we can earn royalties on. And so we think that there's a huge market need and we can prove that, I'm pretty sure. But I'm just wondering, from our R&D perspective, we're seeing that we need some preclinical validation and feasibility. Yep. So that's sort of like a biomedical sort of R&D timeline. Yep. Regulatory is not really it's not really on us to submit, we think. So given it's a little bit of deep tech, that it's some preclinical work, is that kind of outside maybe the perspectives of where you can come in and help? Given that it is a digital technology and that we'll be working with licensees, it seems like it's a good fit. I want to make sure that R&D timeline and that seed round makes sense.
Yeah, so great question, and thanks for asking it. Really, what I like to set perspectives and set expectations, particularly for companies that have a deeper, deep tech or something that might require clinical validation. Jumpstart Foundry, really, like the way that we're positioned, we don't necessarily have the in-house resources to help you manage those clinical trials. So that's really something that we would look for you and the team, or you having advisors surrounding you with some of that expertise, simply because it's not super strong in our wheelhouse.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But so really, to your question is that, does that fit with our funding round? For us, it really is, okay, if we were to consider investing, is, do you have, again, to my earlier point, do you have the team and or advisors to help you navigate those things that we might not be able to be well positioned to help you secure, which clinical trials in this example. But is our 150K going to be meaningful to help you make progress through that? Maybe that, and so that you just have to know that, we're not going to be able to support, a clinical trial,
Sure.
but, our 150K could help you navigate those
Yeah.
couple
For
months. Yeah.
for clarification, we'd be preclinical, so we wouldn't actually be clinical trials. And so
Okay.
as long as it sounds like if we can handle that part from a resources perspective, which I think we can,
Yeah.
you all would be helpful for the business connection and
Yep.
license negotiating advisement. That's great.
That's
great.
exactly right. And that's actually it's a great segue to me promoting and encouraging anyone on this call that, and so JC, you should definitely consider attending. It's not the next necessarily application, JSF application webinar, but we have a different webinar series called Jumpstart Distilled. The co-founder of the company, I think I mentioned them earlier on this webinar, of a company called Mallchok. They were recently acquired by Novartis. The co-founder is joining me on that webinar to talk about his experience building Mallchok and going through that strategic acquisition with Novartis. So I encourage you to join that call if you have specific questions for a founder like that. So please come to that. For others that are maybe not in that kind of clinical or new therapeutic device technology kind of space, but maybe still have questions, we do have the next application webinar on March 11th. And I'm going to actually be co-hosting it with a current Jumpstart portfolio company. Her name is BJ Riley Williams. She is the founder of a company called So Hooked. They are in kind of the employer health and wellness space. So trying to add as many different perspectives throughout this series.
Thanks for all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? If you want to chat or talk, you're welcome to raise your hand or submit in the chat function. Cool. Well, if not, this, I hope, has been a very productive live Q&A for you all. Again, we're going to be hosting the next kind of Q&A, but co-hosted with a current portfolio founder on March 11th. And then we will have a final Q&A session just before applications close on March 25th. Want to have that one, just a few days before applications close, so that as you're filling out those applications, if you have final questions or anything like that, you can get those questions in, and I can help you think through how best to position your application. Appreciate everyone joining today and hope to see you on some future webinars or a Jumpstart Distilled webinar. And everyone have a great rest of your week and a fun weekend ahead.